change a little bit. And for example, for reflexes and muscles,
passes, and I still put a jacket, a piece of clothing up near my head, so I feel like I'm leaning on a pillow, and that's very comfortable for me. Just to pretend that I'm sort of lying on a pillow. We're not really lying. But overall, our crew quarters are very quiet inside. It's very dark. There are no cell phones to wake you up at night. And so we actually sleep very, very well up here.
All right, this next one just came in from Krusty for Alex. He sees everybody kind of passing the ball back and forth. Are your reflexes as fast in space as they are here on Earth?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And it comes back to, right, scientists wanting to find out how does the human body behave differently in space? And can we live for long in space, and how does it change? And one of the things, of course, are muscles. I mean, we knew that in early space flight, people come up here, they don't use their muscles much because floating is really easy, right? I can float up and down with almost no force. But our muscles don't like that because they reduce themselves in size and mass, and then we come back weak. So we're dealing with that problem already since many years, and now actually we find a way to really train our muscles effectively up here. So actually we're not losing muscle mass at all. It's like on my last mission I came back and I had 3 kilos of muscle mass more than before. But of course that's not all. There's other effects in our bodies that change, and we're monitoring this. For example, our eyes for some astronauts change a little bit. Our cardiovascular system changes a little bit. And for example, for reflexes and muscles, we even have an experiment up here. It's called myotones, where we test the tonus of our muscles if it changes. So it's all ongoing science, and that's not only helping astronauts, but also people on Earth who have muscle-related diseases like muscle atrophy and various forms of that, who suffer from these diseases. They can benefit from the science that we do up here. In general, my feeling from being up in space for almost a year now on both my missions is that we do have like smaller things that change up here. But my feeling is that overall, and that's pretty amazing, is that the human body is very, very good at adapting to various environments. And one of them is the space environment. I mean, basically spending up here a year without major changes is a pretty good sign that we could spend much more time out there in space. Of course, we need to do research. There might be like little details that we need to look at that might change and that might become important. But overall, my feeling is that living in space is something.
I think we just had a quick handover, but that was pretty much all of our time that we were going to have with the crew on board the International Space Station. So thank you very much to them for talking to us real quickly. It's always great to talk to them and get some questions from you, the viewer, up to them in space. But that'll do it for our Q&A with the crew today.
Thank you so much for joining. Whether you are watching on NASA TV or Facebook Live, you can learn more about the International Space Station by visiting nasa.gov/station. And you can also follow us online on Facebook at facebook.com/ISS, on Instagram at ISS, or on Twitter at space_station. That wraps up our time for today. We thank you so much for joining us for the 20th anniversary celebration of the International Space Station.
Station, this is Houston ACR.
Thank you, Johnson Space Center. Thank you, Houston. Thanks to everybody who is joining us today. And all the best from the most complex and most valuable and most unlikely machine that humanity has ever built. All the best from ISS.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all the participants on planet Earth and from the Johnson Space Center Public Affairs Office. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
We have taken tremendous steps.
We choose to go to the moon before this decade is out.
We have achieved the earth-shaking, the breathtaking, the groundbreaking,
One small step for man,
and left a mark in the heavens. Our successes build one upon another and amplify what is possible.
The dawn of Orion.
It's time we take the next great leap. We're building the next chapter of American exploration, returning to the moon to stay, so we can go beyond to Mars, to expand what's possible and further our understanding. The architecture for these missions is already taking shape. We will go with new systems, bold designs, and a sustainable mission. You can hear it, taste it, touch it. We are going. We are training, testing, pressing our pioneering spirit into every component, defining our resolve with every line of code, and securing our success with every welcomed partnership. This is not hypothetical. This is not about flags and footprints. This is about sustainable science and feeding forward the advance of the human spirit. Because we are the pioneers, the star sailors, the thinkers, the visionaries, the doers. And because we stand on the shoulders of giants to go farther than humanity has ever been, we will add our names to the rolls of the greatest adventurers in history. Every day, every mission, we advance this calling. We are NASA. And after 60 years, we're just getting started.
Ahí voy, amigos, corto todo.
Hello down there on the good Earth, and all the best from the International Space Station. I am Expedition 57 Commander Alexander Gerst, and next to me we have Serena Onion, Chancellor Flight Engineer from NASA. Well, today is a special day, especially for me, because I've already had the honor several times in my life to spend a Thanksgiving together with an American, which always makes it an especially great experience. So tonight we will have a Thanksgiving dinner up here on the International Space Station, covering 3 continents together with our Russian colleague Sergei Prokopyev. And this is our turkey.
Like Alex said, this is what we're going to be enjoying this evening. We've got everything from turkey to candied yams to stuffing to special spicy pound cakes. So we're very excited. Thanksgiving is a time to spend with those whom you love, whomever that might be. And so we'll be enjoying this meal together, but then also calling our loved ones back on planet Earth. And so we hope that whether you are at home or deployed around the globe, that you are able to find some time to spend with friends and or family. So definitely from the crew of Expedition 57, from our home to yours, we wish you a very happy Thanksgiving.
Welcome to Watch This Space. I'm NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, and today we have a very, very special guest, astronaut Nick Hague, who was our American hero who flew on the Russian Soyuz rocket that was, in fact, a mission failure, but really it was a success. He followed all the procedures, he did it in Russian, and he came home alive. The NASA family is exceptionally proud of his service, and today we have the opportunity to speak to him directly. Well, Nick, thank you for joining us. If you would, just share with us how you're feeling.
Yes, sir. Great to be with you. I'm feeling great. All things considered, being able to walk away from something like that with only a couple, bruises or bumps, physically, I'm doing awesome. Was actually able to enjoy some of the cool fall weather here in Houston and go out for a run with my wife this morning for a few miles, and feeling great.
That's wonderful to hear. Share with us, if you would, just walk through kind of what you experienced from launch all the way until touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. So the first 2 minutes of the launch went completely per plan, and it was a smooth ride. During those first 2 minutes, as we're sitting there watching everything, monitoring everything, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wow, this is everything I expected it to be. And it was, up until it became everything I didn't expect it to be. At that first stage separation, all of a sudden we were kind of violently shaken side to side and thrust back into our seats as the launch escape system ripped us away from the rocket. And as all of that's happening, you can imagine being shaken around. Your vision's a little blurry. I hear the alarm and I see the red light where the engine has had an emergency. And so at that point, it was a pretty vivid realization of that, hey, we're not going to make it to orbit today. We've been pulled off the rocket, and now we've got to land.
So at that point,
yeah.
Did you know that you had separated from the rocket, or did you just know that the rocket was having problems?
No, I knew we were away from the rocket at that point, and it's pretty clear in the way the procedures are laid out, what the next step is, and so Alexei and I just kind of both transitioned into, okay, we know we're coming back and we need to start executing these procedures. So there's a little bit of a time after the launch escape system has pulled you away, because based on that point in our trajectory, what pulled us away was actually the fairing that we were underneath and the rockets attached to it. So it pulled us away underneath that fairing, so we couldn't see outside yet. And it took about 30 seconds for us to then separate the capsule from that fairing, and then we could see out the windows. So those 30 seconds were probably the longest 30 seconds of the entire process, as you just try to process, what has transpired, where are we at, trying to assess, your condition and the state of the capsule, and then prepare for what you need to do over the next 15 minutes to get back down on the ground.
So I was watching a lot of the data and listening to the communications with Dmitry Rogozin, the head of Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, while this was going on. And I remember hearing at a point in time that you had a feeling of weightlessness. Was that pretty much soon after the launch abort system was activated?
Yeah, so as it rips us away from the rocket, at that point, once those thrusters are done, we're like if you throw a baseball up in the air, it's going to follow this ballistic trajectory. And so that feeling of weightlessness is kind of when we were peaking out and getting ready to fall back down to the earth. And I remember that well. For some reason, there's different memories and images that have really solidified in my mind. And I remember this small little piece of debris just kind of floating across in front of my face, and looking up and seeing our zero-G indicators just kind of floating there, and realizing that, hey, this must be what space is going to feel like, but yeah, not today.
And then the next thing I remember hearing was the interpreter who was interpreting Russian for me, because I don't speak Russian as you do. The interpreter, I heard her say 6.7 Gs. And that was the first time I really realized something was absolutely not right. So after a period of time you were weightless, then the onset of G's as you do the ballistic reentry. Is that how long did that take before you got to that level?
Yeah, so that ball's coming down. Our capsule is falling back down to the Earth, and the way it's going to slow down to get us to a point where we can open the chutes is just aerodynamic drag, and so those G's are the result of that drag, and it was probably a handful of minutes before it started to really peak up. Luckily for us, the peak in G was not sustained for that long. It felt like we were at elevated G's for maybe 20 seconds or so. And we've done training in the centrifuge to higher levels than that, to 8 G's for 30 seconds. And so you're trained on how to properly breathe. It's not the same as my experience or as your experience in flying aircraft in the military. Those G's are from your head to your rear end, and they try to pull the blood out of your head. These G's are coming straight at us, pushing down on our chest, and so it really is a matter of trying to learn how to keep your chest open so that you can take a breath of air in, and keeping those muscles flexed, and then trying to use your abdomen to move your diaphragm so that you can breathe in and out. But the training was great. It was everything I had expected to be able to do under that G load.
When I heard 6.7 G, and of course I was listening to the interpreter, but my recollection was that was your voice that was speaking. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were calling out all kinds of things at that moment. Alexei was primed for making communication with the ground, but we're talking to each other the whole time, and then when we're talking to each other, anytime he hits the transmit button, anything that we're saying from either position gets transmitted to the ground. So there's probably a few snippets of me talking back and forth to him, and it's the training kicks in. We spend a lot of time elbow to elbow crammed in that capsule practicing these situations.
Yeah.
And when I'm in Star City, all of that is in Russian. So it just becomes reflex.
Well, that was one thing that really took me by surprise, is I had to think how much duress you must be under, that obviously this is now a failed launch. The launch abort system has taken place. You're going from a 0 gravity position to a 6.7 gravity G position, and I remember thinking, everybody sounds calm, and you're still speaking in Russian, which means these are not unfamiliar to you. You have practiced this kind of thing before, and I was just kind of in awe of it all, because at no point did I hear you break into English, and yet you had to be wanting to say things in your own language.
There were a lot of things I probably wanted to say.
Right. But the world was watching, and so you controlled yourself. I see.
Well, no, you realize you're in a tough spot, and the thing that you can do to give yourself the highest chance of success is to just focus and stay calm and do the things that you were trained to do.
Yeah.
The guys at the Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City, it's a robust training system. They have put us through every possible failure. They put us through a failure, very similar to this with a rocket failure. So we've seen all of these, and it's just a matter of trying to harness the training that they've given us and put it into action. And so, I'd like to take credit for, being calm and collected and knowing exactly what to do. The real credit goes to all those instructors that have spent the last 2 years making sure I'd know what to do in those situations.
Well, Nick, we're all so proud of you and so impressed by what you've been able to do. Let me ask you, after going through a period of G's, at some point it had to start lessening as you went into a free fall within the atmosphere, followed by the deployment of the parachutes. What were you thinking at that time?
Yeah, so after the G's started to drop off, we were getting ready for the parachute deployment. I'd been told many times that so at that point, after that peak in G, it's a nominal landing. All of the actions that are going to occur are things that we've practiced hundreds of times. What we haven't practiced is all the physical sensations that go along with those nominal landings. And so I had a note written in my procedures, hey, when the parachute opens, there's going to be 5 to 6 Gs of lateral side to side swinging back and forth. And so before the chute's open, we're trying to collect all of our loose items that are in the capsule and make sure that once this opens, those aren't going to become projectiles inside the capsule.
Yeah.
And prepping for that. After that opens, hey, we've got a good chute. Then it was a little bit of me looking out the window and trying to assess how high up we were, because normally we'd have the rescue forces circling around in helicopters giving us updates on our altitude. We'd also have an altimeter on the commander's arm that he would wear during landing. We didn't have those because you don't prep for those on launch. And so it was my eyeball out the window going, hey, I think we're at 10,000 feet, or hey, we're at 5,000 feet, and just kind of gauging as we were going down.
Yeah.
While I'm doing that, Alexei is trying to make contact with the SAR forces and get them to our location so that we can get extracted as quick as possible.
And then right before touchdown, rockets fire. Is that correct?
Yeah, so on a standard landing, they're called soft landing rockets. The soft landing thrusters help brace or help minimize some of that impact with the ground. I got to tell you, for a nominal landing, it's still a pretty amazing sensation. Someone I've heard recall it as riding a barrel off Niagara Falls, and I'd say that it's pretty close to that.
Wow.
We hit the ground. As soon as we hit the ground, Alexei cut the riser to the parachute so it wouldn't drag us, and then it felt like we bounced 2 or 3 times and tumbled, and then finally skidded to a stop. It was a rough ride, but I got to tell you, when we skidded to a stop and I looked out the window and it was about 12 inches from dirt, I was at that moment, it was a huge sigh of relief, and I was like, okay, whew, we made it.
What was your communication to Alexei at that point?
We were grins ear to ear, looking at each other, giving each other a high five, and cracking a couple jokes about it being a short flight or completely something unexpected. But it was just this sense of relief, being able to look each other eye to eye and knowing, okay, wow, we just survived that.
So how much were you hearing from Mission Control during this?
Yeah, so, as soon as we were extracted from the rocket and Alexei was reporting our condition, we were tied in, not with Mission Control in Moscow, which is where we would normally talk to once we've made it to orbit, but we're actually talking to flight controllers there in Baikonur. And so they were in contact with us. We were reporting that we were in good condition. We were trying to get their advice on the ballistic reentry and activating that mode, and they were able to provide that to Alexei. And then we just continued reporting down. So we had fairly good contact throughout the entire flight.
How long were you on the ground before the search and rescue crews got to where you were?
When we landed and we skidded to the stop, we were kind of hanging from our straps inside the capsule because of the way the capsule was oriented on the ground. And so we were trying to make the decision whether we were just going to hang there and wait for them to come get us, or we were going to try to open our buckles and maybe fall in the capsule and then try to figure out how to open the hatch when we're standing on top of it. The SAR forces had almost, within a minute or so of us being on the ground, they said they had visual on us and that they were going to be, on the order of 10, 20 minutes to get to us. I guess I'd never realized, so they had 3 pararescue jumpers that as soon as they had found where we were at, the plane circling over, they jumped in to get to us as quick as they could. And so it was a handful of minutes, and then somebody was tapping on the window next to me, giving me the OK symbol, and I was answering back with a big smile, and then they had the hatch open. So I was just amazed at their response, and that, you got to think that they haven't practiced, they practice this all the time, but they haven't had to put it to use in 35 years.
Yeah.
And for them to just respond the way they did is a true testament to how serious they take their responsibilities and their job.
Well, it was an amazing day, and I know it was a mission failure, but it was as successful of a failure as you can possibly have. And I just hope you know, Nick, how proud your whole country is of you. I hope you know, I hope all of America knows how proud they should be of the agency, of NASA, of the engineers, the mission controllers, and of course the astronauts. I will tell you, this was my first launch as the NASA administrator for me to attend, and just to have the opportunity to see the Russian counterparts to America's crew just demonstrate such excitement when they realized that you were safe, that you were coming down safely, that you were going to land safely. Watching our engineers and our mission controllers embrace the Russian engineers and the Russian mission controllers, it was a sight to behold. And I know that before you launched, I had the opportunity to speak to you, and I said that your mission is not just one of science and discovery, it's not just of exploration, but it's one of diplomacy. And Nick, I can tell you that diplomacy was on full display, as we saw two nations that in many cases are not aligned, and in fact our interests diverge in so many ways. But when it comes to space exploration, we've always been able to put those things aside and work together hand in glove. And that was on full display for me as the NASA administrator. To watch it was just amazing. And then once you guys got back to Baikonur, and I had the ability to see you firsthand and of course spend some time with your family, it was emotionally draining for others, probably even more than me, and certainly for you. But I will tell you, the relationship between the United States and Russia in space is probably as strong now as it's ever been. And your mission was truly a mission of diplomacy. So we are all so grateful for you. And I just hope all of America understands how amazing this NASA family is, because I got to see it firsthand really for the first time, and I was blown away. So thank you for what you do.
No, thank you, sir. I appreciate the kind words. I couldn't agree with you more. Being able to fly on a Soyuz and participate in all of that training and get that exposure to Russia and to the people that comprise the organization over there, I can tell you that I was not surprised by their support and how well they worked. It's on display every day over there, and it's just a privilege to be a part of that. I have to say that for a first flight for me, it was extremely memorable. I'm sure you'll never forget it, but I would be remiss if I didn't invite you to my next flight, whenever that might be.
You can count on it. I will be there, and next time we will get
sir.
you to the International Space Station.
Okay, sounds good.
Nick, you're an American hero, and our whole country is very proud of you. And you have an amazing family. And please share my regards with your wife and with your kids and with your mom and dad. It was amazing to see them as well. And they handled it with so much grace. It was incredible.
Will do, sir. I'll pass along your words.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for watching Watch This Space. I'm NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. You can follow me on Twitter @Jim Bridenstine. And of course, if you want to watch this again, you can do so at nasa.gov/watchthisSpace.